The chamber of the Galactic Council smelled of 17 different atmospheric compositions, piped in through separate vents to keep each species comfortable. Bioluminescent panels lined the curved ceiling. Holographic translators hovered at every delegate's station. And at the center of it all, High Chancellor Zareth of the Virati stood at the grand podium, his 4 arms folded in a gesture that, across 43 species, universally communicated patience wearing thin. "The human delegation," he announced, "is late." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Sulvari delegates clicked their mandibles in disapproval. The gas-clad Nethery pulsed with amber irritation. Even the stoic, stone-skinned Draken exchanged glances. Then the doors opened. Admiral Darian Voss walked in. He was not what the galaxy had expected. Shorter than a Sulvari warrior. Softer looking than a Draken youngling. No visible venom glands, no reinforced carapace, no bioluminescent threat display. He wore a pressed dark uniform with small metal pins on his chest, and he was smiling. Not the threat grin of a Keth predator, not the submission bearing of a Sulvari Omega. Just smiling. Like he had no idea the galaxy had been watching humanity for 2 decades, quietly placing bets on how long they would survive first contact. "Chancellor Zareth," the human said, extending one soft, 5-fingered hand. "Apologies for the delay. Our atmospheric converter needed recalibration. Apparently your council's oxygen blend runs about 4% higher than we prefer." "Bit heady," one of my aides fainted. He laughed. "Alone." Then looked around and laughed again, softer. "Human joke. We're fine. Thank you for having us." Zareth accepted the handshake, an odd ritual, flesh pressing flesh, and studied the creature before him. The intelligence reports had described humanity as a mid-tier biological species, limited cranial capacity, fragile skeletal structure, short lifespan, emotionally unstable. The Galactic Council's threat assessment had rated them a Class 2, nuisance potential only. The reports, Zareth would later reflect, had been catastrophically wrong. The summit was meant to resolve the Kareth Corridor dispute, a stretch of space rich in jump point nodes that 7 species were claiming simultaneously. 3 previous summits had collapsed into shouting matches, 2 into near wars. The Council had invited the humans mostly as observers, neutral parties with too little power to have a stake in the outcome. Admiral Voss sat through the first day of proceedings with a datapad, taking notes. He asked no questions. He smiled at everyone. During the recess, he was seen sharing food packets with the Sulvari security detail, who accepted, surprised, and then were even more surprised to find the human food genuinely palatable. "What is this?" one Sulvari guard asked, holding up a small wrapped rectangle. "Chocolate," Voss said. "Ancient Earth treat. We've been making it for about 4,000 years. It is not unpleasant." High praise. "I'll tell the chocolatiers." By day 2, the Sulvari guards were saving him a seat at the recess table. The real trouble started on day 3, when the Keth Dominion delegation accused the Nethery collective of falsifying their territorial survey data. The Nethery responded by releasing a gas that, while non-toxic to most species, caused the Keth to experience 17 minutes of involuntary philosophical reflection, deeply humiliating for a warrior culture. The chamber dissolved into chaos. Zareth called for order 6 times. He was ignored 6 times. Admiral Voss stood up. He didn't shout. He didn't use his translator to amplify his voice. He simply stood, and something about the stillness of him, the way he stopped moving, stopped smiling, stood with his hands clasped behind his back and his pale eyes scanning the room, made the chamber quiet. "May I speak?" he said. Zareth, more out of shock than permission, nodded. "I've reviewed the survey data," Voss said, pulling up a holographic map. "Both sets. The Nethery figures are accurate within a 0.3% margin, which is well within galactic survey standards. The Keth data was taken from a different reference epoch, not falsified, just misaligned. This is a translation error. not a lie. Not a provocation. Silence. Furthermore, he continued, I noticed that neither the Keth nor the Nethery actually need the fourth jump node. The Keth traffic patterns favor the northern corridor. The Nethery's primary transit lanes run south. You're fighting over infrastructure neither of you would predominantly use. He paused. The ones who actually need Node 4 are the Solhari, who have been sitting quietly for 3 days because they assumed they had no leverage. Every head in the room turned toward the Solhari delegation. Their lead diplomat, a hardened female named Shurithka, slowly stood. That is accurate, she said. So, Voss said, still smiling now, small and calm, what if we stopped talking about who owns the corridor, and started talking about shared transit rights calibrated to actual usage projections? I have a draft framework here. It's rough, my team put it together last night, but the math holds. He sent the document to every delegate's station. There was a long silence. Then the Draken delegate, who had not spoken in 3 days, said, the math holds. It was the Keth warlord Grevax who first said it openly, in a private conversation that, as all private conversations in the council eventually did, became not private. The human is dangerous, Grevax told his second. He does not fight. He does not threaten. He simply arranges things, and then they are arranged, and somehow we have agreed to something we did not intend to agree to. He is a diplomat, the second said. All diplomats manipulate. This one does it while offering you food and making you feel seen. Grevax clicked his mandibles. That is a predator behavior. That is how ambush hunters work. They make prey comfortable. They make prey trust. His second was quiet for a moment. The intelligence files rated them Class 2. I know, Grevax said. I've requested a reclassification. On day 5, someone leaked the Keth reclassification request to the full council. The debate that followed was, ironically, the most productive the chamber had seen in years, because Admiral Voss sat in the observers' gallery, visibly and cheerfully taking notes, and no one wanted to say anything they didn't mean while those pale eyes were watching. Zareth pulled him aside during the evening recess. Admiral, the Chancellor said, I must ask you something directly. Of course. Are humans predators? Voss considered this for a moment. Not defensively. Not dismissively. He tilted his head slightly, a gesture Zareth had noticed he made when actually thinking, as opposed to when performing thoughtfulness. We evolved as persistence hunters, Voss said. We can't outrun most prey. We can't outfight most predators. What we do is follow. We track. We outlast. We stay on course long after prey thinks it's escaped, long after any other predator would have given up. He paused. We domesticated wolves. Not by being stronger than wolves, but by being patient with them. By feeding them. By being consistent and reliable until the wolves decided we were worth working with. Zareth stared at him. You domesticated apex predators. We domesticated everything that held still long enough. Voss smiled again. We're not violent by preference, Chancellor. But we are relentless. And we are very, very good at figuring out what other creatures need. He let that sit for a moment. Which is mostly why we're useful in rooms like this one. Zareth did not sleep well that night. The Kareth Corridor Accord was signed on day 7. It established a shared transit framework across the full junction network, with rotating administrative rights and dispute resolution protocols authored primarily, everyone acknowledged, by the human delegation. The Solhari got Node 4. The Keth and Nethery got favorable transit terms and a face-saving clause that let both sides declare partial victory. The 6 other disputing species got a framework they hadn't known they needed until a human showed it to them. Admiral Darian Voss signed the document third, after the Chancellor and the Solhari lead, and when he set down the stylus he looked genuinely pleased, not triumphant, not calculating. Just pleased, The way a person looks when something has gone the way it was supposed to. You planned this, Zareth said, quietly, standing beside him. You came here knowing the outcome. I came here with a hypothesis, Voss said. The outcome required everyone in that room to be smarter than their worst impulses. I just tried to make that easier. And if they hadn't been? Voss was quiet for a moment. Then we'd have tried again. And again after that. He picked up his data pad. Humans are patient, Chancellor. We've been at this for a while. Zareth watched him walk away, small, soft, slow by any warrior standard, and thought about wolves. About what kind of creature chooses, deliberately, to make other creatures trust it. About how that was not, in fact, the behavior of prey. He updated his own threat assessment that evening. Humanity, Class 7. Reclassification, pending further observation. Note, do not let them bring food. They will make you like them. That appears to be intentional.